High quality literature includes texts with complex characters, rich language, use of literary devices, emotional engagement, and relevant themes with depth. It provides opportunities to delve into different social and cultural topics, beliefs, and experiences. Wurrtoo incorporates many higher tier vocabulary words specific to Australia and environmental science, making it rich in language. Some examples of these words are ecosystem, embankment, species, nocturnal, marsupial, and endemic. The writing of the text is written in a way which makes the characters quite lovable and relatable, which makes it easy to connect to them. This then means that as the story develops, you become emotionally engaged. One such example of this is in Chapter 7 when Wurrtoo rescues Cula after she is knocked unconscious when going through the platypus portal. You can feel tension and concern for Cula as well as hoping that she is okay. It is important to engage with high quality literature as it develops reading and comprehension skills, critical and creative thinking, and cultural literacy. As it can be used to model writing, discussion, and analysis, a singular high quality text is also a valuable resource for the classroom that can be used for many different lessons. Wurrtoo can also be a valuable resource as a mentor text. Mentor texts are used to focus on one particular aspect of writing and or comprehension, whether it be descriptive language, narrative structure, characterization, writing a particular section of a story, or other aspects of writing and or comprehension. It models what the teacher wants the student to be able to do. So it is important to make sure that you can take a specific section of a text out if the intention is to use it as a mentor text, so students can focus specifically on that one aspect of writing and or comprehension. There are many different ways that Wurrtoo could be used as a mentor text. For example, if students are looking at ecosystems and animals within those, they could use the text to build an ecosystem of the animals and plants mentioned within Kangaroo Island. They could then research this to see if it is accurate, which would also improve their digital literacy. This would build their understanding of the vocabulary in the text, whilst having the opportunity to apply new knowledge to known situations. Wurrtoo has very descriptive language with abundant imagery and personification. This gives ample opportunities to delve into the creation of the illustrations based off of the descriptions used, as well as practice writing their own descriptive sentences that could then be turned into illustrations by other students. An example of this is on page 2, where Wurrtoo is introduced. Phrases such as silky grey fur, voluptuous rump, and high-waisted shorts dotted in red, yellow, and black are used to describe what he. Wurrtoo is a narrative fiction text written for middle primary age students. Whilst it is not a picture book, it does contain many illustrations throughout the novel which add to the story. It can be considered an adventure animal children's novel, as it follows the journey of Wurrtoo, a wombat who is in love with the sky and has decided he will marry it. It follows a clear story arc with a complication, rising action, climax, and resolution. Wurrtoo blends imaginative storytelling with real-world settings and challenges, which offers children opportunities to both enjoy the story and to engage critically with it and its themes. The use of illustrations throughout the novel helps develop visual literacy, builds deeper meaning of the text, and provides further information on what is going on around the characters and how they can react to said experiences. This text has deep cultural, social, and historical context. It is deeply informed by Talisa Ilisara's Narunga, Ghana, and Adnyamatara heritage, embedding cultural perspectives of country, animals, and storytelling. According to Heist 2018, Aboriginal literature often positions animals as teachers and country as central to identity, which is reflected in the anthropomorphic portrayal of Wurrtoo and Kula. Through this lens, Wurrtoo introduces children to Indigenous storytelling traditions, supporting the cross-curriculum priority of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander histories and cultures. It also helps build a community within the classroom, enabling all children to have a sense of belonging. The use of bushfires within the novel relates strongly to current Australian experiences. This means that it can help students to understand what is going on in the world around them in a safe and less stressful environment. It also means that students are able to further discuss and understand the impacts that bushfires can have on the environment and society in a less confronting way. If students are in Year 5, This connects other learning areas such as HAS, which introduces the management of severe weather events and their connecting consequences. Wurrtoo embeds Indigenous heritage and local Australian environments. This supports culturally responsive teaching by ensuring that students are aware of the world around them and what their impact can make. There are many instances within Wurrtoo that shows this. One such example is from pages 38 to 39, when Cooler explains the concept of country to Wurrtoo to try to explain why he can't marry the sky. Week three's task focused on the literary elements of the text. This includes setting, characterization, plot, theme, symbol, mood, and style. They are essential to a story as they are the structural features of the text. Setting is when and where the story takes place. It sets the atmosphere and influences what the characters are able to do in the story. Within Wurrtoo specifically, the sky is also used as another character. Wurrtoo is set on Kangaroo Island, going through many different areas including Seal Bay, Admiral's Arch, Signet River and Hog Bay, also currently known as Penneshaw Beach. The environment is quite often used as another complication within the story, with water in the form of the ocean and the river both being problems to solve. For example, the ocean blocks Wurrtoo from being able to go to the Forest of Dreaming to marry the sky. Characterization is how the characters speak, act, look, and behave in a story. Within Wurrtoo, all characters that we interact with, apart from the sky, are animals. Animals are quite often used within stories for children, as it softens the impact of difficult themes and experiences. This is called anthropomorphism and is used to soften the impact of the bushfires, hogs, and anxiety that Wurrtoo experiences within this story. The two main characters of this story are Wurrtoo and Kula. Wurrtoo means wombat in Narungga language, whilst Kula means koala in Kaurna language, both being different First Nations languages. Wurrtoo is seen as a curious but anxious wombat who likes to follow a set routine. He is quiet, caring, reflective, and prefers not to be around others. Whereas Kula is the exact opposite. She is outgoing, loud, loyal, spontaneous, and sociable. This juxtaposition of the two characters lessens over time, as Wurrtoo grows in confidence and Kula learns to listen to others. Plot is the sequence of events in a story. It looks at what happens and in what order. Generally, a story will have an exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. In Wurrtoo, there are many smaller complications and resolutions that lead up to the climax. This builds suspense, but also allows time for Wurrtoo and Kula to meet several different characters, build up their skills and their knowledge, and learn more about themselves on the journey. Theme is the underlying message in a story. It is quite common for there to be several, and they tend to have at least one common overarching theme. In Wurrtoo, the main themes are friendship, bravery, caring for the environment, connection to country, and self-discovery. The combination of these themes creates a general focus on creating friendships through improving yourself by looking after others, including the environment, and being who you are but not changing yourself to fit what others want. A strong example of this is the way that Wurrtoo sticks to his beliefs that he will marry the sky. Even though he is laughed at by several different characters throughout the story, it does not sway him from his beliefs. There is also a very strong connection to country through language, food, beliefs, and dreaming stories that is embedded within the text. This is very deliberate as the author wanted to be able to create a story for her son to have representations of his culture in the storybooks they read. She was able to reach out to specific elders to ensure that the information in this story was used appropriately and correctly. For week four's task, I decided to create what I believed the sky's morning robe would be. This ended up being a sundress that had the colours red, orange, and yellow. I chose this as I thought this could be a great activity for students to do to build their understanding of imagery through design. On page 26 of the book, it says, "Still in her morning robe of waratahs and golden wattles sparkling with dew." This is not the only time that the sky is described to be wearing an outfit. On page 20, Wurrtoo mentions a blue satin frock. On page 38, he mentions an evening gown and that she dazzles in diamonds and pearls. On page 133, he says when she turns all white as she dons her wedding gown. Finally, on page 140, he references the morning sky as her sundress. In reference to MacDonald, multimodal literacy can be used to strengthen an understanding of character, plot, and emotion. The choice of phrasing when describing the sky tells us many things about not only the sky itself, but the time and location of Wurrtoo and how he sees the sky. This constant reference back to clothing is a form of personification, as Wurrtoo is describing the sky as wearing clothing like a beautiful, delicate, feminine being. This helps solidify his reasoning for being in love with the sky. However, it also creates some great forms of imagery that students could use. The specific mentions of Waratah and golden wattle give specific colours and shapes that students can connect to. As these are also Australian native flora, there are opportunities to incorporate elements of HASS and science into the book analysis. To go into further detail on the visual response itself, I specifically used the colours red and yellow to match the colours of Waratahs and golden wattle. I used shades of orange to blend between these colours, keeping a fluffy-like edge to the bands of colour to mirror the golden wattle shape. Within the bodice of the dress there is an overlapping pattern to mimic the middle of the Waratah. The sleeves of the dress mimic the external petals as seen in the picture. Using visual meta-language, vector can be seen by the lines that create a 3D effect in the bottom of the dress, bringing your eye up to the middle. This is further encouraged through salience of the bright yellow being in the center of the dress, done deliberately to also draw your eye to that point. This choice of gradient mimics a sunrise, showing that when Wurrtoo mentions this outfit, it is early in the morning. This could also be done for the other references made within the story, and could be made abstract or realistic, depending on the steps to come after the design work. This allows for students to incorporate their own style into their work. The use of visual techniques such as salience, vector, and choice of shot can determine what the focus is within the design. This could include different ranged shots, angles, line work, color, and symbols or shapes, and could focus on the entire outfit or one particular section. The poem that I chose to create for week five's task was an ode. I specifically chose to write an ode to the sky from the perspective of Wurrtoo. This was chosen as from the very start of the book, Wurrtoo constantly shares his devotion and love to the sky. On only the third page, it tells us about another love letter that he has written. Using this knowledge and a combination of several snippets of text from this book, figurative language and rhyming structures, I recreated what could have been a letter he had written to the sky. This used similar formal and sophisticated language to match his vocabulary and speaking style within the book. This is Ode to the Sky. A love letter for you, not unlike ones before, an ode of our love everlasting, like waves crashing upon the shore. Your clouds each a kiss, the wind blowing them my way, each a gentle brush across my cheek I catch to make my day. Your morning sundress of Waratahs and golden wattle, your daytime frock a satin blue, your evening gown with dazzling diamonds and pearls, every ensemble you adorn, highlighting your heavenly hues. A bunch of pink pea flowers I pick to remind me to stay, for life without you would be eternally grey. So I make my way to you, crossing rivers, lands, and shores, fighting hogs, facing fears, to reach the place so pure. The final step, the tallest gum to climb I must endure, to see my wife draped in white, to finally be yours. This poem is split into four stanzas, with each stanza having its own rhyming structure. Stanza 1 and 3 have an AABB rhyming form, while stanza 2 has an ABAB rhyming form, and stanza 4 has an ABCB rhyming form. This was done to keep the flow of the poem steady while having enough differences to keep it interesting. There are several uses of figurative language, most of which have been highlighted on the slide shown. Some examples of this include metaphors, similes, personification, imagery, and alliteration. An example of a metaphor is life without you would be eternally grey. This connects not having the sky in his life to being boring and meaningless. Simultaneously, this also creates juxtaposition between the previous stanza with the large amounts of colour mentioned. An example of simile is like waves crashing upon the shore. This shows the love to be powerful and endless. This also connects Wurrtoo often meeting the sky at a lighthouse by the ocean. The whole of the second stanza can be seen as personification, as the sky is being personified as a being wearing different outfits, instead of noticing the different times of the day, matching the descriptions Wurrtoo gives her as the day progresses. An example of imagery is to see my wife draped in white. This gives a visual picture of a bride, and also connects to Wurrtoo's wish to be married to the sky. Finally, an example of alliteration is highlighting your heavenly hues, which has an emphasis on the H at the start of the words.